You've just been arrested for DWI, and now you're staring down fines, a license suspension, maybe even jail time. You're scared, overwhelmed, and you have no idea what your options actually are. I'm Barrett Dye. I've handled hundreds of DWI cases right here in Texas, and most people have way more defense options than they realize. In this video, I'll walk you through exactly how a DWI case can be beaten, step by step, so you know exactly what's possible, what to look out for, and how to start building the strongest defense from day one. Let's start with the truth. A DWI charge in Texas can feel like the end of the world, but it absolutely does not mean you're automatically guilty. Every single year, people just like you get their DWI cases dismissed or win them in court. Why? Because the law gives you rights, and police and prosecutors don't always do everything by the book. And here's the thing, the way Texas handles DWIs is unique. That's why what works in other states might not help you out here. Our state has its own procedures, rules, and legal landmines. Knowing these can change your future. So if you're worried, that's normal, but you have options. What you do next matters. I want to show you the real ways people actually beat DWI cases in Texas. Not fairy tales or internet rumors, but what lawyers and judges see every day in courtrooms from Dallas to Houston, Panhandle all the way to the coast. The first step in beating any DWI case in Texas is looking at why the police stopped you in the first place. Was it legal? Was there a real reason? You'd be surprised how often this is where a case falls apart. Here's the deal. Under Texas law, an officer needs reasonable suspicion to pull you over. That's more than just a hunch. They have to be able to point to specific facts like you were weaving, speeding, or ran a red light. If they pulled you over just because it was late at night and you were leaving a bar, well, that's not enough. For example, I had a client in Fort Worth who got pulled over for driving slowly. That's vague. We got the dashcam footage, and guess what? The client was going just about 2 miles under the speed limit. Case was dismissed. Why? Because the reason for the stop, they lied about or misled in the report. If the police stop wasn't legal, anything that happened afterward, including failed field sobriety tests or breathalyzers, can get thrown out. That means that your entire DWI case could go away. Always, always ask your attorney to dig into the justification for your stop. Sometimes the best defense is right there at the beginning. Most people think that if they failed a field sobriety test, that they're sunk. And that's just not true. These tests, things like walking heel to toe or standing on one leg, are designed to give police something to point to. But here's something you may not know. These tests are highly subjective, and lots of things can cause someone to fail besides alcohol. Let me share a real case. My client was pulled over in the Panhandle. They failed the walk and turn test, but they were made to perform the test on an extremely rough gravel shoulder. And it was raining. The officer said they stumbled. Well, yeah, of course. We showed the prosecutor that basically anyone would have lost balance under these conditions and ultimately convinced them to dismiss the case. In Texas, the officer has to follow specific instructions. If they don't explain the test exactly the way they're supposed to, or if they gave it on uneven ground, or if there's traffic whizzing by, these results can be challenged and often thrown out. Medical conditions, nerves, even being overweight, all these things can affect the results. If you fail the test, don't panic. Your lawyer's job is to show the court why that test might not be reliable in your specific case. Now, let's talk about breathalyzers and blood tests. A lot of folks think that these machines are infallible. The government sure likes to think so. If it says you're over 0.08, you're doomed. But that's not true. These tests have to be done right on properly maintained machines and by someone certified to do them. In Texas, we see plenty of mistakes. For example, I had a client in Central Texas. He blew a 0.10, just over the legal limit. But we found out that that breathalyzer hadn't been calibrated for months. And that's a huge problem. In another case, the blood sample sat in a hot squad car hours before it was tested, and that can mess with the results. Also, sometimes the way they collect the sample isn't sterile, or they don't follow the correct chain of custody, and that means they can't prove your sample wasn't mixed up with someone else's. If any step in the process is off, these results can be challenged and sometimes thrown out entirely. Texas law is strict about how officers must handle these tests. That's why you need a lawyer who will dig through all those records and hold the state to the highest standards. Police reports almost always say you had bloodshot eyes, slurred speech, or a smell of alcohol. They're in every report. But those are just opinions. They're not facts. Did you know that allergies, tiredness, or even spicy food can make your eyes red? Or that slurred speech can be caused by anxiety or medical conditions? One client of mine was pulled over with slurred speech. Well, guess what? This is just the way they talked, with a slight speech impediment. We showed this to the prosecutor, and that whole argument of slurred speech disappeared. You have a right to confront the officer in court. A good attorney knows how to ask the right questions to show the jury that the officer might have gotten it wrong or jumped to the wrong conclusion. Remember, an observation by an officer is just that. It's an observation. It's their opinion. Those opinions can be mistaken or even flat out wrong. Most Texas police cars have dash cams. Many officers wear body cams. These videos can be your best friend. Sometimes the footage matches the police report. A lot of times it tells a completely different story. For example, a defendant was accused of staggering during a field sobriety test. Well, in pulling the body cam footage, she stepped off the line because there was a giant pothole. No staggering. That was enough for the judge to doubt the officer's whole story. If you're arrested for DWI, always ask your lawyer if video evidence exists. It can show the officer made mistakes, gave bad instructions, or that you actually looked fine. In some cases, getting that footage is what wins the case. Texas law makes it clear. The state has to prove you were intoxicated beyond a reasonable doubt. But there are lots of things that can make you look, sound, or even smell like you've had too much, even if you haven't had a drop. Consider diabetes. People with diabetes can have acetone breath, which a police officer might say smells like alcohol. Low blood sugar can make someone confused or clumsy. Another example, exhaustion or certain medications can affect the way you walk or talk. In one case, a client had a significant medical condition that made them appear drowsy, and it affected their balance. The arresting officer didn't ask about medical conditions, just assumed they were intoxicated. We gathered voluminous medical records, showed them to the prosecutor, and ultimately convinced the prosecutor to dismiss the case. Never assume you look guilty just because of your health. The law is on your side, and a good attorney will make sure your story gets told. Cops have to follow the rules, period. They're supposed to read you your rights, fill out paperwork correctly, and follow all sorts of steps when they arrest someone for DWI in Texas. If they mess even one part, it can help your case. For example, if you're arrested and the officer forgets to tell you that refusing a breath test can lead to a license suspension, that's a problem. Or if paperwork is missing or wrong, like listing the wrong time or place, that can make a big difference and raise doubts about the whole arrest. In Harris County, I saw a case thrown out because the officer filled out the report on the wrong person. It literally mixed two people up in the same car. Mistakes happen more often than you might think. We see that all the time. Names of people in the wrong vehicle and accident reports, things like that. They're human, they make mistakes too. Ask your attorney to examine every single step the officer took. If they skipped a step, your case gets stronger. Not every DWI case in Texas goes to trial. A lot of the work happens before you ever set foot in a courtroom. Your lawyer can file motions, which are official requests to throw out bad evidence. You can challenge the legality of the stop or ask for the case to be dismissed if your rights were violated. Sometimes, once the prosecutor sees your lawyer is serious and that their evidence is weak, they'll agree to drop the charges or reduce them to something less serious, like reckless driving or obstructing a roadway. I've seen this happen dozens of times, especially when the police report has holes or the test results are iffy. Don't underestimate the power of these early moves. Often, this is where cases are won. There's no sugarcoating it. Texas takes DWIs very seriously. The penalties are tough: jail time, fines, license suspension, and a record that can affect your job and family. But you do not have to just accept it and plead guilty. A local DWI attorney knows the sheriff's habits, which prosecutors are tough, and what judges expect in their courtroom. We know how to dig through video footage, test results, and go through all the paperwork for a mistake that gets your case dismissed. We know the Texas laws inside and out, and honestly, we know how to fight for you. If you try to navigate this on your own, you're playing against a team that does this every day. The state, they do it day in and day out. If you want to beat a DWI case in Texas, you need someone on your side. You just learned the real ways that people beat DWI cases in Texas, from challenging the stop to using medical evidence, picking apart field tests, and demanding that every step was done right. Don't let fear or confusion keep you from fighting back. If you want to go even deeper, the next video is a must-watch. Tricks cops use during DWI stops. You'll learn the exact tactics officers use to trip people up and how you can protect your rights starting today. Don't risk your future by missing this. I'll see you over there.